Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Mailbox for the 11th of October 2011. My name is Totalbiscuit, bringing you your daily dose of community interaction, gaming discussion, all that good stuff. You can email in mailbox at cynicalbrit.com, that is mailbox at cynicalbrit.com, with topics for future shows. The first email comes in from Alec that says, as you might know, Pepsi, Doritos, and Modern Warfare 3 are doing a cross-promotion where if you buy Pepsi and Doritos products, you get X amount of double XP. I was just wondering what your thoughts are on it. My thoughts is freaking disgraceful. Holy crap. Buy our fattening snack product and get advantages in-game. If you buy into this and you're older than, say, 12, you are an idiot. And you need to be slapped around the face repeatedly until you get some sense into you. Holy crap. Why? It's not even a good amount either. That's the hilarious thing about it. It's like 15 minutes per bottle or something ridiculous like that. I had a look at the site and my mind boggled at this thing. Wow. Why would you do that? If this promotion is successful, it will prove that a significant portion of the gamer base will literally whore themselves out in any way in order to get an advantage in a video game. They are consumer whores to the highest degree. God. Don't even get me started with those guys as well, encouraging people to eat and drink a whole bunch of really unhealthy stuff in order to get in-game advantages. We're already quite aware that gaming could be a very sedentary hobby. You combine that with tons of that stuff, and you've got a recipe for disaster. How irre-damn-sponsible can you possibly get? And that applies to both the people participating in this deal and the people perpetuating this deal. What else is there to say about it? It's stupid. It should never happen, and quite frankly, if you get involved in it deliberately, then I both mock you and pity you. Next email comes in from Matt that says, as you know, it's been confirmed that Mass Effect 3 has multiplayer. Given that we don't really know how the mechanics work, my question is, what are your thoughts on this? Personally, I feel a little apprehensive. The trademark of BioWare games, especially in the Mass Effect series, has always been exploration of a universe, interaction with well-written and interesting characters, and engaging storyline. I know that Star Wars The Old Republic has shown to a degree that you can combine that with an MMO and still give a good experience, but I honestly feel that ME shouldn't really go down that path. Well, I certainly have some concerns about it. The main concern I've got is that it takes development time away from the single player, and it depends how they implement it. I think the best way for them to possibly implement this would be some form of co-op, and that being that you can have friends drop in on missions and actually take over the roles of your party members, because let's be honest, the party member mechanics have never been all that great in Mass Effect. It's certainly not been its strongest suit, and honestly, it is quite a lot of fairly tactical cover-based combat, and I think that going in there with two friends would be pretty cool. It would be also kind of neat if those friends could sort of involve themselves in the conversation in some way. You know how the characters actually interject with their opinions in specific areas. It would be nice if, say, your friends had the option to pick a number of options there in order to take part in the role-playing experience. But honestly, I don't know how extensive that could really be, because it's about Shepard. It's always been about Shepard and how Shepard interacts with other characters. Playing any other character is completely and totally irrelevant. The risk is, of course, that they go for some kind of deathmatch mode, which wastes a lot of development time on something which most likely won't be all that interesting. The combat mechanics of Mass Effect have never been its strongest suit, honestly. You know, are you going to argue with me on that one? Would you say that it's as good a cover-based shooter as, say, Gears of War? I don't like Gears of War, but I'm willing to accept that Gears of War is a very high-quality example of cover-based third-person shooting, which is what Mass Effect is in terms of its combat. So I'm not convinced that that would actually make a good game if it were any kind of deathmatch. And I think the real risk is that BioWare decide to allow that multiplayer to get involved somehow with the single player and actually affect it. So if they had some kind of deathmatch mode, you'd earn things for the single player. That's bad. No. I don't want my immersive RPG experience that is highly story-driven interrupted by some goddamn death matches. No, that's terrible. So I don't know how they're going to implement this, honestly. I hope it is the drop-in, drop-out co-op mode and it's simply part of the experience and completely and totally negligible and, of course, ignorable for those who want to, and that it's not essential to the experience. I think that would be a terrible idea. So I am cautiously keeping an eye on it. I am well aware that BioWare is not infallible. Dragon Age 2 proved that beyond the shadow of a doubt. If I'd actually done a WTF of that game, I would have spent an hour getting really angry about it. Because I beat the first Dragon Age, I spent over 100 hours in that game, I did pretty much everything there was to be done, and I enjoyed the hell out of it from start to finish. Dragon Age 2, I stopped playing within 6 hours. I couldn't take it anymore, and I was putting up with it for the first 5 at least, and I can count the number of enjoyable experiences I had in that game on the fingers of one hand. Not good. No, no, no. Dragon Age 2, very bad. So, yes, BioWare is not infallible. Let's hope that they don't go off the rails once again with Mass Effect 3. This one comes in from Ryu that says, I pre-ordered the collector's edition of The Old Republic as soon as I was able, and then winced when I realized the game was going to cost me a staggering £130. I've noticed that collector's editions of games are getting more frequent, and more of them are over £100. Is this fair on fans? Especially on MMOs like Tor, where I'm just going to be paying subscription costs as well. Am I just being a cheap bugger because I want to go back to paying £50 to £60 for my deluxe editions? Or are the publishers trying to milk the fans? And what are potential repercussions? I know I will have to buy less games I've wanted, such as Diablo 3 and Torchlight 2, to cover the cost. Well, I hope you don't not buy Torchlight 2, because that game is $20, whereas Diablo 3 is $60, plus whatever you decide to spend on the RMT, plus all the microtransactions and things like that. So, yeah, it's always really been a case, I think, of milking the fans. It's always been a case of a market that certain companies are willing to exploit, and if people do keep buying these things, then they will keep making them. And more often than not, a collector's edition consists of cheap tat and a marked up price. There are some collector's editions that are very good. I mean, for instance, I have one right here. It's Dark Souls. This is the limited edition of Dark Souls. You don't even pay any extra for this. This was limited edition to anyone that actually pre-ordered the game, and it came with an art book, and it came with a soundtrack, behind the scenes, digital game guide, and a nice box, and it's really, really awesome. I didn't pay any extra for that. And then there are other examples, of course, like the World of Warcraft collector's editions, which I think for the most part are good value. The only problem I've really got with those is that they never really innovated with them past the Burning Crusade. I mean, every single one of those collector's editions has been the same thing. You always get the art book, you always get the reskinned whelpling pet, you always get this and that, the behind-the-scenes DVD. There's another example of a really good collector's edition, and that's, of course, the StarCraft collector's edition. Blizzard are really good at this, honestly. They're very, very good at doing collector's editions, but some CEs, yeah, they're not all that great. And I have a Resistance 3 Special Edition here, for instance. I don't know if you really count this as a collector's edition. They're doing a lot of these, I would say, budget collector's editions, whereby they add an extra £5 onto the price tag, and usually it comes in a steelbook. It's, for the most part, is for consoles, and it comes with some digital stuff. I mean, for instance, here we've got a vinyl effect Blu-ray disc, which is quite nice, and a bunch of extra skins for the multiplayer, and I think there's an extra weapon and a title, and that really is about it. And that was only a few pounds extra. Is that a collector's edition? Is there a difference between the sort of lo-fi collector's editions, the special editions, the steelbook stuff, the limited editions, and the full-on collector's editions? Sometimes there are. You're talking about, say, Tor, for instance. That is a very high-end, high-tier, expensive collector's edition. As far as I'm concerned, CEs are a way to make a higher profit margin on certain parts of their fan base. I don't think you can really argue that. You can't seriously turn around and say to me that a lot of the stuff you get in a CE is worth the extra cost that you paid for it, in terms of the cost of manufacturing. No, they're making a much, much higher margin on those editions, so if people keep buying them, then they will keep coming along. I don't really view that as harmful, though. The only problem that I really see with the collector's editions is when they start to give you in-game advantages. If they give you in-game cosmetic stuff, not a problem. Don't really care. That's fine. If they give you advantages, that's a bad thing. That is without question a very, very bad thing indeed. And I'm noticing the collector's edition as well as the digital deluxe edition come with a bunch of extra items. Now, I don't know how many of these are actually useful. I'm having a look at it. There's a flare gun that fires a dramatic and inspiring flare into the air. Does it buff you? I don't know. We've got a training droid here, a small but advanced training droid to hover at your side for combat assistance. Now, that sounds like it could be helpful. Is there something else you can acquire in-game that has that effect? Because if not, that's just made you more powerful by paying more money. That I don't like. Holo Dancer, probably not useful. Holo Cab, probably not useful. A Stap. Oh, that's a sleek in-game vehicle, and I assume that you can use different vehicles anyway, so that's not really a big deal. There's a little mouse droid pet here as well. And there is a collector's store, unique in-game vendor with dynamic assortment of items available only to the purchase of the collector's edition. Again, what does that contain? Does it contain things that help you out, or is it just purely cosmetic stuff? That's where the divide lies. One of these I'm okay with. If it's just purely cosmetic stuff, alright, whatever. A development team, I suppose, is large enough to justify creating a few cosmetic items like different lightsaber colors or different vehicles or whatever. I mean, consider the size of that team. But if it gives you actual advantages, then yeah, that's horrendous. As regards to the tat that comes with it, take it or leave it. Do you really think that it's worth it to get a Darth Malgus statue? Do you think that that's a good piece of memorabilia? If you do, then great. Cool. Enjoy it. If you don't, then don't buy it. So that's the dividing line as far as I'm concerned. Some collector's editions are great, some aren't. So do your research before you buy. This one comes in from Mazurka that says, with the release of Guild Wars 2 upon us, a lot of hype has been made about how it's going to be a free-to-play game as opposed to a subscription-based MMO. I've been an avid player of WoW for the past 4 years and have actually enjoyed the fact that it's a subscription-based game. My reasoning behind this is it allows developers to create much more content and keep up with the community better than that of an underfunded game. The massive amount of mid-expansion changes and new content is possible in my belief only because of massive monthly revenue. Even if you may not agree that WoW comes out with a lot of content consistently, I just want to know your thoughts on whether or not the free-to-play system in Guild Wars 2 will hinder production of future content after the game's release. Probably not, because if you look at how Guild Wars 1 did it, they did so extremely well. Guild Wars 1 sold the game at full price. Bear that in mind. You're going to have to buy the game, box copy or digital, at full price. They then released 3 expansion packs, all of which they also pretty much sold at full price, because I think all of them could be used on their own. They were separate campaigns, if I recall correctly. There are very minimal microtransactions in that game. For instance, you can purchase extra character slots, and I know you can also purchase a character makeover and things like that. And to me, that stuff is acceptable in that game because it is a free-to-play game. It's not acceptable in a subscription-based game. I don't know just how much this really will hinder content development. A good example of a game that is free-to-play yet has had exceptional content development has got to be DDO. DDO has done a really great job. Their updates are enormous. They've got all sorts of awesome stuff put in there. And that is a free-to-play game. Yes, it has a subscription option, but it is still a free-to-play game. I don't know how much it's really going to limit it. And honestly, I don't think that WoW's done an amazing job in a lot of its expansion packs of actually putting in enough content. Would you call 4.1 a good patch? I don't. 4.1 was a goddamn disgrace. And that took 6 months. And consider how much somebody paid in that time. 6 times 15, ladies and gentlemen. What is that? I'm sure you can figure that one out. That would be $90. $90, folks. What did that $90 buy you? And then consider the number of millions of players who are also paying that $90. That gave us 2 rehashed heroic dungeons. Yeah, that was definitely worth it. Millions upon millions upon millions of dollars gave you that. I don't think the amount of content and the quality of content developed over the course of an MMO's life is actually directly proportional to the amount of money it makes. I think there's a massive amount of diminishing returns on that, and I think Blizzard has proven that beyond the shadow of a doubt, with many of their patches not being up to scratch. So I think ArenaNet's probably got this, and they have proved over the last few years that they are more than capable of creating a game that does subsist on minimal microtransactions and the sale of full-priced expansions. Seems to work for them, so here's hoping it also works for Guild Wars 2. Okay, folks, that is me done for the day. Thank you very much for watching the Mailbox, and I will see you next time.